little bit of a different filming setup. I'm scooted over to get this white door in the background so I can flash up book covers, because in today's video I'm going to be talking about my top 12 favorite books of the year. And the challenge for this video is to spend like 30 seconds or less talking about each book, because the first thing I noticed when I was editing my first two videos was, boy, can I talk a lot and repeat myself. So that is going to be something that I work on moving forward. I can see the timer, so I'm definitely going to try and cut myself off. I'd like to be a part of the top 12 favorite books of the year. All right, let's go. Top 12 favorite books I read in 2020. And this is not ordered by like least favorite to most favorite. This is just kind of grouped by genre, just to make it easier to talk about similar books, you know, together. So let's go. I got 30 seconds per book. Let's try to do this. So my number one is The Turn of the Key and One by One by Ruth Ware. This was the year I discovered how much I like thrillers, and these two books were kind of my wake-up call to, hey, you might actually like thrillers. I always thought I was kind of a scaredy cat, but then I read these and I was like, maybe I don't like scary things necessarily, but I do like the feeling of suspense when I'm reading a novel, and these two books really kind of opened my eyes to that. I hope to read her next book if she, you know, the next book she releases. The second slot goes to all the books I read by N.K. Jemisin this year. In past years, I have read the Broken Earth trilogy by her and absolutely loved it, and was dedicated to reading her backlist. So this year I read the Inheritance trilogy, and I read the the Dreamblood duology, and I also read The City We Became, and I freaking loved all of them. Like, all of them. My favorites were The Killing Moon and Shadowed Sun and The City We Became. I just think N.K. Jemisin is a new favorite author, and I'm gonna read everything she puts out. She has a couple of short stories that I still haven't gotten into, but that is a 2021 goal, is to read N.K. Jemisin's backlist. She is a fantastic sci-fi fantasy writer, and I cannot wait to read more by her. The number 3 slot goes to A Song of Wraiths and Ruin by Roseanna A. Brown. And I put this here because it surprised me. This is a story about a princess and a plebeian, basically, and they're trying to kill each other and they fall in love. And that is a recipe and a formula for young adult that I really enjoy. There's a little bit of fantasy elements, there's a little bit of betrayal, and there's a little bit of a romance. And so those are all things that I enjoy about YA. But the other reason I really enjoyed this book was the chronic pain, chronic migraine, and like anxiety representation in this book. Like the mental health and health representation in this book was so good. And I'll try not to spoil anything, but the end of this book has to do with how the character learns to like deal with his anxiety, and it's just so beautiful, and it was so powerful to me, and I'm gonna scream it from the top of the mountain for how much I loved A Song of Wraiths and Ruins, and I cannot wait for book 2. This is I don't own the copy yet, but I need one immediately. I love YA, and this is the reason why. If you read this book, you will understand why I like YA. So the number 4 spot goes to Upright Women Wanted by Sarah Gailey. And this is a short novella, it's a dystopian, and it's gay as heck. And those are all things that I have learned that I really love reading about. I mean, I already read queer work, but the fact that it was dystopian and short, I really discovered short fiction this year, and I just really loved it. In fact, I gave it to my sister as a present for Christmas this year because I just want to get this book into as many people's hands as possible. The number 5 spot, I believe, is The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. And this book surprised me on so many levels because not only is it just a great plot and characters, like the characters are phenomenal, the plot is phenomenal, but this book is incredibly philosophical and really like made me think. So it really impacted me greatly. And it's only like 300 and some odd pages. Like, I was just so impressed by the amount of care that was done and what the author was able to accomplish in such a short amount of time was incredible. And I love sci-fi, and I need to read more sci-fi, and this is just another great example, and I need a copy. I need all the beautiful editions of this. Number 6, I read 2 new Brandon Sandersons this year. I read Starsight and Rhythm of War. I have a whole review and discussion about Rhythm of War on my channel. You know, kind of self-explanatory. I just really like Brandon Sanderson's work, so these are on the list, and Brandon is great. I basically am reading everything he's written, and I hope that train continues. I hope I continue to like everything he puts out. Number 7 is the Arc of a Scythe series. Now this has a little bit of an asterisk next to it because while I thought the plot and the characters and the world building were amazing and I just couldn't put this series down, I did have a few issues with it in terms of like being a disabled person, and there's an aspect of this society where they have eradicated all illness and disabilities and mental health problems, and so that element rubbed me the wrong way, and I think that needs to be called out. I don't know, it just kind of bothered me. As someone who is disabled, it felt weird, and I think people need to talk about it, or it needs to be, you know, brought to light that this does have this element to it. So if that's gonna bother you, maybe skip this one. Even though every book I gave 5 out of 5 stars to, it was just that one little like, not my favorite. I don't know how to feel about that particular element, but it's still on this list because I thought everything else about it was fantastic. All right, number 8 was Binti by Nnedi Okorafor. Now this is doing a lot with a little, like short fiction coming in once again, short sci-fi coming in once again, and I just really liked everything about this. I read it in one sitting and just was completely enthralled by it. And while I didn't like the sequels as much, I really appreciated this work. And I really want to read more Nnedi Okorafor. So I'm really happy I discovered her this year, and this was my introduction. So Binti, A+, 5 out of 5 stars for me. Number 9 is The Last Voyage of Blythe, and I actually have a copy of it. And this was probably the most surprising to me because in 2019 when this book came out, I remember a lot of people having a copy of it, but then I couldn't find a lot of reviews or like wrap-ups where this book was included. So I just kind of picked it up on a whim because I saw, you know, people buying it. And then I read it and I was like, why aren't more people talking about this? I would classify this book as a dystopian. It's about a society that has collapsed and you know, humans are now living in like these walled cities, and in order to survive, they are mining gold out of the river using these boats. But what I love about this story is how much of a character study it truly is and how much it does for a character in like 300 pages. I read it in one sitting and I was like, this is incredible. This is amazing character work, a really interesting world. So if you haven't read this, I highly recommend it. I read it in one sitting. It's really fast, but it accomplishes so much, and I really think more people should read it. So I'm gonna scream about how much I love The Last Voyage of Blythe by Allie Condie forever. All right, number 10 is The Test by Sylvain Neuvel. Again, another short sci-fi book. I would even classify this as a sci-fi thriller. So like we're really bridging the gap of all the things that I found that I love this year. And if you want something that's really twisted and kind of effed up, this is what you should go for. It's short. Again, I read it in one sitting and I just could not stop. I could not put it down. I needed to know what happened. And I really liked Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Neuvel. And so I'm discovering that, you know, I'm probably going to read his next work too. So he might be a new favorite author. I'm not quite sure. I want to pick up like 3 works by him to discover if he truly is a favorite, but it is trending that way. So The Test, incredible. You should pick it up, and it's really short if you haven't already. Number 11 is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, and I cannot help but smile as I say the title because of how much I love this book. I read this book 3 times this year because it just made me happy. It was probably the most escapist piece of fiction that I picked up this year. It's in an alternate timeline where in 2016 we hired a female president instead of, you know, who we really got, and it's a love story between the first son and the Prince of England, and it's just so sweet, and their love is so pure, and I just loved it absolutely, and I cannot wait for Casey McQuiston's next book, and I'll probably read it 3 or 4 times when it comes out. I kind of discovered that maybe romance is my genre, and I cannot wait to read more, actually. The last and final book, so the number 12 spot, goes to Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert, and I only gave this book 4 stars because I understand that the ending is not the best. There is a 3rd act conflict that is kind of silly. And so that's why I knocked off a star, but you have no idea how much this book meant to me as someone with chronic illness, as someone who has been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, to read a character who has fibromyalgia, but not only does she have it, she is managing it. As you know, she's had it for a while and she's managing it, and it's just part of her life. And yes, she struggles, but it doesn't stop her from doing anything. And she gets to fall in love, and it's super sweet. And again, I read this book 4 times. 4 times this year. So if anyone out there is, you know, disabled or has any sort of mental illness or chronic illness and just wants to read about a character who has a chronic illness falling in love and having a really sweet story, like, I cannot recommend Get a Life, Chloe Brown enough. I really loved it. So that was the list of 12 fiction books that were my favorite this year. The next video I hope to put out is my top nonfiction reads of 2020. I really got into nonfiction this year, and I kind of wanted to separate the fiction and the nonfiction from each other, because in this video, if you see this list of books and you're like, hey, we have really similar book tastes and you can recommend me similar books, that would be fantastic. I would love to read more books like these in 2021. So let me know your recommendations in the comments below, and I can't wait to chat with you guys about books. I'm so excited. So have a good one, and we'll see you later.